So good morning students. നമ്മൾ ഇന്ന് പുതിയ ടോപ്പിക്കാണ് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നത്. That is the pharmaceutical legislations and this is our third chapter. So third chapter എന്താണ്, they are divided into 4 or 5 parts. അതിൽ first section ആണിത്, pharmaceutical legislation. So let's start. Introduction. There is pharmaceutical legislation. That means it's a law that is related to pharmacist, drug, medicine, cosmetic, any substance that is related to the health of the society. And the main objective of this pharmaceutical legislation is, that means the drugs received by the patients, it should be good quality and it should be tested also, and they should undergo safety and efficacy guidelines. This is the main objective of the pharmaceutical legislation. Next, we are going to discussing about a brief history of the pharmaceutical legislation in India. So in 20th century, there was no control in drugs as well as the provision of pharmacy. So there was no effective control for import system, manufacture, distribution, sales of drugs, etc. So under this circumstance, the many laws came into force, that is Opium Act 1878, Poison Act 1919, Dangerous Act 1930. And in 1927, Government of India passed a resolution to take control against these, and also for standardization of preparation and sales of drugs. So for this, they appointed a committee that is known as Drugs Enquiry Committee. That's in 1928. Then on 11th August 1930, the Government of India appointed another committee that is under the chairmanship of late Colonel R.N. Chopra. And the main role of this committee means they will take measures against the problems of pharmacy in India. So this committee published their report in 1931. Then after the publication of this report, the Professor M.L. Scroff, he started pharmaceutical education at university level, that's in Benares Hindu University, in the year 1932. Then in 1935, United Province Pharmaceutical Association was developed, and later it is converted into Indian Pharmaceutical Association. Then Indian Journal of Pharmacy, that was started by Professor M.L. Scroff in 1939. In 1940, Pharmaceutical Congress Association was developed. And in 1937, Government of India brought a bill that is known as Import of Drugs Bill, but later it was withdrawn. And in 1940, a drug bill was introduced, that is to regulate import, manufacture, sale and distribution of drugs in British India. And finally, this bill was known as Drugs Act 1940. Then in 1941, the first Drugs Technical Advisory Board came into force. Then Central Drugs Laboratory was also established in Calcutta. Then in 1945, the drugs rule came under Drugs Act 1940. Then also in the same year, Pharmacy Bill was introduced to standardize the pharmacy education in India. Then in 46, Indian Pharmacopoeia list was published under the chairmanship of late Colonel R.N. Chopra, and it includes the list, that is the drugs that using at that time in India, which is not included in British Pharmacopoeia. Then in 1948, the Pharmacy Act was published. During this time, Indian Pharmacopoeial Committee was constituted, that is under the chairmanship of late Dr. B.N. Ghosh. Then in 49, Pharmacy Council of India developed, that is under Pharmacy Act 1948. And in 54, Drugs and Magic Remedies Act came into force in the run for misleading ads. In 55, Medicinal and Toilet Preparation Scheme in order to provide duty. Then in 55, the first edition of Indian Pharmacopoeia was published. In 85, Narcotic and Psychotropic Substance Drug Scheme to protect the addictive drugs. In 1994, Drugs Price Control Scheme, and it is amended from time to time. That's in 1979 and 1987. It was repealed and modified. Then other rules also came into force. That is other act, Patent Act and rules, the Trade and Merchants Marks Act, Shop and Establishment Acts, Factories Act, Industrial Development and Regulation Act, etc. And this is the history of the pharmaceutical legislation. Next, Drugs Enquiry Committee. So, Government of India appointed a committee that is known as Drugs Enquiry Committee. That is under the chairmanship of Colonel Ramananda N. Chopra in the year 1931. It is also known as Chopra Committee. And some of the important points of this committee: central law to control drug and pharmacy provision, for controlling drug and pharmacy provision, and also it helps in the development of Central Pharmacy Council and State Pharmacy Council, and in order to control the production of drugs and pharmaceuticals. And this committee also helps in establish testing laboratories in all states and central drug laboratory to control the quality of imported drugs, and the laboratory and it should be equipped with competent staff. Then there is advisory board to advise the government in the for making rules, and for provide the course for training of pharmacists and prescribe minimum qualification for the registration as the pharmacist. So these are the key points of this committee. Then some of the points also, that is registration of every medicine manufactured in India that is imported from outside the country. Then drug industry in India development. Then Indian pharmacopoeia complication. Then reduce the manufacturing. Health survey and development committees. So 3 committees are mainly Boer Committee, Mudaliar Committee, Hadi Committee. First one, Boer Committee. Boer Committee, it is introduced in 1943 under the chairmanship of Sir Joseph Boer. Medium and then certain key points under. So let's see. First one, Central Drug Laboratory. A proper good central drug laboratory setuping. Then establishment of All India Pharmaceutical Council and Provisional Pharmaceutical Council, and they provide revised courses for pharmacists, pharmaceutical technologists, graduate pharmacists, etc. അതുപോലെ throughout the country Drugs and Cosmetics Act in the enforcement. Then registration of pharmacists, and then for maintaining a proper discipline in the provision of pharmacy. This is Boer Committee. Next is Hadi Committee. that is Indian government എന്താണ് set up a committee, that is Hadi committee, to take care of a drug industry, and also the to control the various facts of drugs in India. So J Sublal Hadi, he is the chairman of this committee, and this committee will gives report of licensing, price control, imports, role of foreign sector, and quality control, etc. This report, the committee report, and it's a very important landmark for many pharmaceutical industries. And they also provide essential and life-saving medicines, prophylactic medicines of good quality and with best prices. And licensing and approval procedures is also simplified in this committee. കൂടുതൽ കോംപ്ലിക്കേഷൻസ് ഒന്നും ഇല്ലാതെ പ്രൊസീജിയേഴ്സാണ് ഈ കമ്മിറ്റിയിലുള്ളത്. സോ മെയിൻലി വാട്ട് ഫോർ ദിസ് കമ്മിറ്റി, അതായത് പേഷ്യൻസിന് വളരെ ഗുഡ് റേറ്റിന്, അതായത് ബെറ്റർ റേറ്റ്സിന് മെഡിസിൻസ് വിത്ത് ഗുഡ് ക്വാളിറ്റി മെഡിസിൻസ് പ്രൊവൈഡ് ചെയ്യാം. ദെൻ ലാസ്റ്റ് കമ്മിറ്റി, this Mudaliar Committee. So the government of India appointed Health Survey and Planning Committee, that is in 1959. That is towards the end of second 5-year plan. So there already എന്താണ് ഒരുപാട് കമ്മിറ്റീസ് ഉണ്ട്. സോ ഈ കമ്മിറ്റിയിലെ സജഷൻസ് അതൊക്കെ കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്തിട്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ പുതിയൊരു കമ്മിറ്റി ഫോം ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സോ ഇൻ 1946 by the suggestions of Boer committee, that is Dr. A.L. Mudaliar was the chairman of this committee, and the committee submitted its report in 1962. So the main function means Health Survey and Planning Committee. They are limited to development of health services, infrastructure and health care at primary level. So these are some of the key points of this committee. That is, complete the progress made during first 2 5-year plans. Then All India Healthcare Service establishment. Then existing primary health centers in India strengthen ചെയ്യുക, പുതിയത് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാതെ. Then one primary health center should cater maximum of 40,000 people. Then strengthening the district hospitals as a good referral centers. Also എന്താണ് റീജിയണൽ അഡ്മിനിസ്ട്രേറ്റീവ് ലെവൽ എസ്റ്റാബ്ലിഷ്മെൻറ്റ് ഇൻ സ്റ്റേറ്റ് ലെവലും അതേപോലെ തന്നെ ഡിസ്ട്രിക്ട് ലെവലും. സോ അവിടെ ഒരു ഇൻചാർജർ ആണ്, ദറ്റ് ഈസ് റീജിയണൽ ഡെപ്യൂട്ടി. ഓൾസോ ദർ വിൽ ബി 2 or 3 district medical അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഹെൽത്ത് ഓഫീസേഴ്സ് എന്തിനാണ് ഫോർ കൺട്രോളിങ് ഓൾ ദിസ്. Then integration of medical and health services, that is recommended by the Boer committee. So these are the main key points of this committee. So that's for today. Thank you.